In this video, we're going to learn how to solve by completing the square. So here are our steps on the right-hand side to tell us what we're supposed to do to solve by completing the square. First thing says to isolate the variables on one side. That means x squared and 16x will stay on this side, but I need this negative 15 not to be there because I want only variables on this side. So for me to get rid of this negative 15, I'm going to add 15 both sides. So get an x squared plus 16x, that's left over here, and then now equals to 15, since 0 plus 15 gives you 15. Now we're going to complete the square by using our product sum cross, and you're going to add this number to both sides of the equation. So I'm going to put a plus blank and a plus blank. So the idea is, if you remember your factoring, this is your B value. You already know that, and that usually goes down here on the bottom. So positive 16 will go down here. We don't know any other part here because I don't know what C is to do A times C to put it up here, and then I don't know these two. However, the way completing the square works is you have to have these two numbers exactly the same. So if I know it adds to 16, what two numbers have to go here? If they're exactly the same, it has to be a positive 8 and a positive 8. Those are the only two numbers that, for them to be exactly the same, it will turn into 16 when you add them. So I'm going to go backwards. If I know these are the two numbers, then their product has to be 8 times 8, which happens to be 64. So that's going to be what you put here on the left-hand side, and it will be what you put on the right-hand side, because what you're essentially doing is you're adding the same number to both sides of your equation. Once we have so it says added numbers to both sides of the equation, we did that. So it says factor by grouping to write the trinomial as a perfect square. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to break this up into 8x and 8x. That's what we had here. So it'd be x squared plus 8x plus 8x plus 64 equals, and I'm going to go ahead and add 15 with 64, so that will give me 79. So I'll continue factoring by grouping like you usually do. So group the first half, group the second half. They have an x in common with the first one. So I'll say x plus 8 is left over. In the second half, it's going to be positive. Between 8x and 64, they have 8 in common. And I'll get an x plus 8 left over. And I'll still set it equal to that 79, which is the number on the right-hand side. To continue your factoring, you know that you've done it right if this is the same as this, which they are. So that is the greatest common factor. And then the things that you GCF'd out, those will be your other factor, because that's what's left over after you factor out the greatest common factor. From here, you know you've completed the square correctly because I have two of the same exact factor. So I'm going to go ahead and write it. Instead of writing it spread out like that, I'm going to write it like this. That's what they were saying over here. Your goal is to make it look like x plus or minus something squared. From here, we're going to use solving by square roots to finish out this problem. So you will isolate the squared expression, which it already is isolated. Then you will take the square root of both sides. X plus 8 will be left over here. We will not forget that plus or minus in front of the square root of 79. I believe 79 is prime, so I can't continue like breaking that down any farther, so I'll leave it as is. And then my last step is to subtract 8 from both sides. So if you like writing it as one chunk, you can say negative 8 plus or minus square root of 79. That's how you would write it, as one chunk. If you don't like that, you can separate it by saying x plus 8 equals positive square root of 79, or x plus 8 equals negative square root of 79. Ooh, I put plus or minus up here. I meant just to put positive. And then you'll subtract 8 from both equations. Keeping in mind, negative 8 and square root of 79 are not like terms, so you cannot combine them. So you have to leave them separate. But these are the solutions, either written separately or you can write it together like that.